Social expectation drowns us all inside. What you have should be what I want, 'cause what I have just ain't alright. The clothes I wear, the way I comb my hair, how I live, oh, I don't care.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa, wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina astafa. Alhamdulillahi ala kulli hal, wa na'udhu billahi min hali ahli an-nar. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad an-nabiy al-ummi wa ala alihi wa sallim taslima. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad adada ma fi ilmillah salatan da'imatan bidawami mulkillah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad kullama dhakarahu dhakirun wa salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad kullama ghafala an dhikrihi al-ghafilun. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbana yassir wa la tu'assir wa tammim bil khair wa bika nasta'in ya fattah. Allahumma ij'alna du'atan ilaik wa ila rasulik. Rabbana a'ti anfusana taqwaha wa zakkiha anta khairu man zakkaha anta waliyuha wa maulaha. Allahumma inna nas'aluka ilman nafi'a wa rizqan wasi'a wa shifaan min kulli da'. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-afwa wal-afiyata fi dinina wa dunyana wa ahlina wa amwalina. Allahumma astur awratina wa amin rawatina. Amma ba'd. The Sheikh Hazrat Ibn Ata'illah al-Iskandari rahimahullah brings this chapter. He talks about something called desire. In Arabic it is called Tama. Allah. The 18th chapter on Tama, desire. The branches of disgrace spread out from nothing but the seed of Tama. It is from this seed of Tama and desire from which grows the tree and then the branches of disgrace. So the branches of disgrace and humiliation spread out from the seed of Tama and desire. Explanation. The branches of the tree of disgrace, they grow and spread from the seed of greed and desire, which has taken root in the heart. Disgrace is always the consequence of greed and desire. Brings nothing else but that. When a man's heart desires wealth and fame, there's this craving, there's this longing, this deep wanting inside of him for wealth and fame, then for its acquisition, he will certainly establish a relationship with people, and he will direct his appeals to them. The acquisition of wealth or fame is not possible without collusion with others. His desire constrains him to flatter and to beg others. So he flatters them and he begs from them. This is a great disgrace. So Tama, desire, is thus the root of all evil. True respect, izzah, lies in the opposite of it. True respect lies in man's heart being devoid, empty of any relationship with anyone besides Allah Ta'ala. He remains independent from all. This treasure of true respect is acquired by the elimination of greed and the cultivation of the attribute of qana'at, which is contentment. That is why the poet says, عَزَّ مَنْ قَنَعَ وَظَلَّ مَنْ طَمَعَ عَزَّ مَنْ قَنَعَ وَظَلَّ مَنْ طَمَعَ. That respected indeed is that one who has qana'at and contentment of the heart. And disgrace is that one who has the seed of desire and greed within his heart. The Shaykh, Nawwarallahu marqadahu, then says, no evil has imprisoned you so much as suspicion. Suspicion, this adhan. This assertion is from the proof for the earlier statement. Nothing is as effective as suspicion for imprisoning man in greed and desire. As a result of his dhan, his suspicion, man becomes ensnared in the net of desire, becomes trapped in the net of desire. What you do is that you imagine or you suspect, it's all your dhan, that a certain man would be of benefit to you. So you watch him, you single him out. You therefore turn your gaze of desire to him, and without saying anything in words, you turn your gaze of desire to him, expecting benefit from him. Or you imagine a particular trade, profession, or occupation will be beneficial for you. Greed then induces you to become involved in that pursuit. All the chains of relationship which are fettering man's legs and tying them are the products of man's imagination, his suspicion, his dhan. It is only divine power, qudrat-e-ilahi, or the attention and the tawajjuh of the Ahlullah which can free man from these chains. The tawajjuh, attention of the Ahlullah, and the divine power and qudrat of Allah can free man from these chains. The nafs, the more we know about the nafs, the better it is for us. The more you know about your enemy, the better it is for you. And our nafs is our greatest enemy. The nafs inclines greatly to imagination. It likes to do that. And it inclines to imagination and to dhan. And the nafs remains very far from the haqaiq and the realities. So only when the nafs becomes mutma'inna, it gets close to the realities. Otherwise, the nafs is just hooked up on dhan and imagination. As long as the nafs has not been purified, the elimination of this disease is difficult. The Shaykh alayhi rahmah, says, you are free from something in which you have lost hope. When is it that you have gained your freedom? You are free from something in which you have lost hope, and you are the slave of the object of your desire. Explanation. When desire and greed for an object arise in the heart, a strong relationship develops with it. The heart becomes enslaved to it. This enslavement brings in its wake a variety of difficulties. In the bid for its acquisition, man bears the indignity of many a disgrace. If the heart, on the other hand, despairs of all things, it loses hope from all other things, then it attains freedom from them, and achieves perpetual peace and comfort. It therefore does not behove a Muslim to disgrace himself in the pursuit of the lowly things of the world and to forget the akhirah. So the essence of this 18th chapter can be summarized in one sentence, one verse, as the poet says, Azzaman qana'a wa dhallaman tama'a. Respected is that one who has attained contentment, and disgraced is that one who has the seed of desire within him. The 19th chapter is on Tobago, which is humility. Humility, a quality very, very important for the Salik. When Mufti Taqi Usmani was here, he spoke on Tawazu. And some people claim to be humble. That's a different thing from actually being humble. It's two different things. The Shaykh alayhi rahmah, nawwarallahu marqadahu, wa nafa'ana bi ulumihim amin. He says, whoever asserts tawadhu, humility for himself, he is undoubtedly a man of pride. That's just a show. He is a man of pride. Because when a claim of humility is made, and he claims to be a humble person, this claim is made after the perception of one's supposed lofty rank. He has that in mind. This implies that one believes in one's personal elevation. Hence, one is a mutakabbir, he is a proud person. What does this mean? Believe in oneself. This is true humility. Really believe in oneself to be the most contemptible and lowest being is known as tawadhu, humility. In fact, the Mashaykh said you will not attain humility until the time comes when you leave your door and the people that you meet, you consider them to be better than you. You don't consider yourself to be better than anyone. So believe in oneself to be the most contemptible, and the lowest being is known as tawadhu. The consideration, on the other hand, of greatness is of oneself is takabbur, pride. How do we gain knowledge of something? Our ulama have said, tatabayyanul ashya'u bi'adadiha. What a beautiful statement. Tatabayyanul ashya'u bi'adadiha. Things become known and apparent through their opposites. The knowledge of a thing is gained from its opposite. In the absence of the opposite, the knowledge of a thing would not be possible. The knowledge of light is by virtue of darkness. If on earth there was only light and no darkness whatever, the conception of light would not have been possible. The knowledge of courage is on account of cowardice. If there was no cowardice, there would not have been the knowledge of courage. Thus, the claim of humility made by a person is tantamount to takabbur. There is no doubt in him being proudful. If his nafs was fully imbued with true humility, he would not have been aware thereof. He would not have been aware even of his own humility because of the non-existence of its opposite, subhanallah. Because we only know something through the opposite. So when there's the non-existence of takabbur, then he won't even be aware of his own humility. Since pride exists in the man who lays claim to humility, the Shaykh Rahmatullah alayhi says that the one who puts forth the claim, the dawah, that he is humble, is in actual fact considering himself to be elevated. Thus he is a man of pride. The meaning of tawadu, humility, is that man views himself with all honesty to be so contemptible that the possibility of him having any rank does not even occur to his mind. Me, I have some rank. It doesn't even occur to his mind. Because the non-existence of takabbur should be there for him to really be humble. He sees nothing but contemptibility in himself. When this degree of humility has been cultivated, no claims will be made, no claims. Neither in regard to tawadu, he wouldn't claim that, nor in regard to any other praiseworthy attribute, no claims. A humble man, says the Shaykh, rahimahullah, is not a person who regards himself above the act of humility he is displaying. He's doing that. But he regards himself above that act, but he's doing it. That's not a humble man. A humble man is a person who considers himself below the act of humility he is doing and not above it. Al-Ma'na, the meaning. Generally, people believe that a humble person is one who displays acts of humility. Example, a wealthy man rendering some service with his own hands to a poor person. People gain the impression from this display that the wealthy man is very humble, when in fact he may be entirely devoid of any humility because he thinks of himself as being superior to this act. He's doing it, but he's above that. While he overtly, openly displays humility, he covertly believes that the act of humility in which he is involved is really below his dignity. He feels conscious of having adopted humility, and he believes that he has practiced virtue. The Shaykh alayhi rahmah says, true tawadu, humility, is the consequence, the natija of mushahada, of the perception, the viewing, the mushahada of the grandeur of Allah and of the tajalli of Allah, of the celestial illumination of Allah, of the tajalli of His attributes. That is true tawadu. In other words, to really understand Allahu Akbar. To really understand that, then he will get tawazu when he understands Allahu Akbar. It is the consequence of the mushahada, perception of the grandeur of Allah, Allahu Akbar, and of the tajalli, the celestial illumination of all his sifat and attributes. While people generally think that ostensible actions or displays of humility are tawadu, in reality, true humility is that condition of lowliness which is accepted by Allah Ta'ala. When the greatness of Allah dawns on the heart of man and he vividly, clearly realizes the illumination of his attributes, then the rebellious nafs melts away. When he starts to understand Allahu Akbar, he starts to understand the sifat of Allah, the rebellious nafs begins to melt and melt away. The roots of rebellion and pride are then eradicated. They are then eradicated. The vain hopes of the nafs are annihilated. Humility then develops. This then is true humility. The Shaykh Ali Rahmah says, a sin, hear what? A sin which humbles a man and cultivates in him dependency on Allah is better, much better than such ibadat and worship which generates pride and arrogance in him. In other words, a sinful person who is repentant is better than an abid, a worshipper who is mutakabbir. The purpose of ibadat and dhikr, worship and dhikr, remembrance of Allah, is to become humble, to really understand Allahu Akbar, and to feel wholly dependent on Allah Ta'ala, eliminating the rebellion and the arrogance of the nafs. Always remember the nafs is an embodiment of evil. If on account of a sin committed because of the frailty of human nature, if because of this sin man is torn, he's really torn apart by remorse, grief, and the humility he feels as a result causes him to despise himself. What? Look what you have done. Good for nothing. It causes him to despise himself and to believe that the sin will destroy him. Then these effects of the sin are better than the conceit, the vanity which a man develops as a consequence of his acts of worship and piety. His conceit, self-esteem, and pride constrain him to despise other Muslims. When he does that, he begins to despise other Muslims. He thinks he is so holy, so righteous, and he views others as dirt. Better than that is a man who committed a sin and cries and repents. But a person should not misunderstand this. A dim-witted person should not now understand from this explanation that it is better to abandon worship and just commit sins now. No, that's jahalat. The evil of sin and the virtue and beauty of obedience are self-evident facts. At this juncture, the Shaykh Rahmatullah alayhi is simply pointing out that the actual method of reaching the divine court is by way of acquiring true humility and dependence of Allah. Allah's court, the royal court of Allah. To go there, to get access there, one needs to be a fakir, truly dependent upon Allah, and he needs to have humility. So remember this chapter on tawadhu and what is true tawadhu. The 20th chapter is on istidraj, Istadraja yastadriju istidraj, which means granted of respite. It's a baiting, an entrapment. The Shaykh alayhi rahmah says, be fearful of the daily state of favor, ihsan of Allah Ta'ala, despite your disobedience, for this may be a respite for you. What it means? Sometimes Allah Ta'ala does not apprehend the transgressors. In most cases, people do sin and Allah leaves them. In spite of their rebellion and their transgression, Allah gives them time, and Allah continues to shower His favors on them, but yet they are still in sin. When they completely lose themselves in sin and reach the point of no return, He suddenly apprehends them. The granting of such respite, istidraj, to the transgressors is called istidraj, which is a matter of utmost gravity. It's a serious situation. On the other hand, some servants of Allah are immediately forewarned when they commit any misdeed, immediately taken to task. As a result, they quickly engage in dhikrullah, the dhikr of Allah, the remembrance of Allah, and they abandon the transgression. They banish ghaflat. Ghaflat is the opposite of dhikr. Here the Shaykh, rahmatullah alayh, discusses istidraj. He says that Allah's ihsan, Allah's kindness and His favor settles over you every moment while you persist audaciously in transgression. You are not even being reprimanded. Instead, your wishes are even granted. This condition is very, very bad, very fearful. You should fear the state, for perhaps it is respite allowed by Allah Ta'ala, istidraj. Thereafter, He will suddenly apprehend you with His punishment. Proof for this is in the Quran, which warns of Allah's punishment arriving suddenly in the wake of the respite granted to the transgressors. So many proofs of this in the Quran. When their transgression exceeds the bounds, then His punishment comes, and it comes swiftly. And so many cities we know have been destroyed. The city of Pompeii, Montserrat, the city of Port Royal, Kingstown in Jamaica, the tsunami. It comes so quickly, so swiftly. Ad, Thamud, and so many stories in the Holy Quran. The period of grace granted. Man is rebellious, wicked, yet Allah's favors come in. His wishes even being granted. It's only time that has been given to him. The period of grace granted, that is the istidraj, should therefore not be misunderstood that I am flourishing. When Allah Ta'ala gives man respite, his ghaflat increases in stages. So if it is istidraj, then a man has to be fearful because his ghaflat and negligence will increase. But his hopes and desires are fulfilled. When this ghaflat, negligence, has thoroughly set in, the divine chastisement suddenly overtakes him. Ma'adallah. The Shaykh rahimahullah says, the great foolishness of the murid, the disciple, is to behave disrespectfully, without adab. When there is a delay in the arrival of the punishment, he thinks that if he was in error, then the zahiri and the batini bounties of Allah would have ceased. Physical as well as internal and spiritual, they would have stopped. Sometimes divine aid ceases, that Allah stops His aid without one being aware thereof, because Allah Ta'ala may block off only the additional or the excess favors, or He may distance the murid in rank, that is depriving him of proximity without him being aware, or sometimes Allah simply leaves one to dwell in one's hopes. And that's all He is doing, dwelling in hopes. Al-Mana, the applicability of ahkam and laws and apprehension, that is punishment, are in proportion to one's proximity. It depends on how close you are to Allah. Proportion to one's proximity, qurb to Allah Ta'ala. The closer one is to Allah, the severer is the applicability of the laws. In many aspects, the general public is excused and not apprehended and punished for misdeeds. Awamun nas. However, the elite of Allah, the Khawas, the awliya, are immediately apprehended, rebuked, or punished for any slips they make. On being divinely apprehended, they readily understand the error for which they are being caught. Sometimes the dhakir, salik, shakir utters a disrespectful word regarding Haqq Ta'ala. Example, a word of complaint slips from his mouth because of some occurrence, or he complains to someone about the hardship on him, or he criticizes someone among the mashayikh, or he regards a disrespectful act of his as being insignificant because he was not immediately overtaken by punishment. He therefore thinks that if his act was truly disrespectful, then the physical and spiritual favors, ni'mat, in which he is basking and enjoying would have ceased, but is still continuing. The zahiri, physical favors are, what are the physical favors? Wealth, children, health, strength, and other material comforts. The batini favors are the spiritual favors. What are they? They are the rays of spiritual illumination, which continuously cascade into the heart of the salik from alam-e ghaib, from the unseen or the celestial realm. The idea that this divine aid and favor would have terminated is the result of extreme ignorance. It is not necessary for the salik to be aware of the termination of batini fuyuz, because such cessation can happen in several indiscernible ways, and he doesn't even know. Sometimes this happens by way of the cessation of only further progress, and his spiritual station becomes stagnant. This stagnation leads to a gradual development of a barrier between the salik and Allah Ta'ala. And while he labors under the impression of being on his former pedestal of divine proximity, a great change has in fact taken place. Na'udhu billah minhu. Sometimes the salik, he drifts far away from Allah, from Allah's qurb and proximity. However, in spite of him being trapped in this position, he does not realize it. Sometimes the salik is left to his own whims and fancies. Whereas formerly, Allah Ta'ala held the salik's choice. Allah is the one who held his choice and free will. Formerly, Allah held the salik's choice and free will subservient to his will. But now, his subservience of the salik is eliminated and the salik is placed under the domination of his nafs. The nafs dominates now. Allah Ta'ala then withholds his aid and his tawfiq. The murid should therefore live with the utmost respect and control his speech and movement. It should here be understood that this type of disrespect, as mentioned above, is committed by a murid whose nafs has not attained complete fana, annihilation. After attainment of fana, the possibility of disrespect is entirely precluded. The question of any barrier, therefore, developing between the murid and Allah does not arise. However, even after attaining fana, self-annihilation, the state of an ignorant Sufi who has no sheikh remains precarious. Without a sheikh kamil and lacking in ilm-e-deen, he can end up worshipping shaitan. May Allah Ta'ala protect us. The 21st chapter is on wird, wazifa, and the anwar which flow into the heart. The Shaykh alayhi rahmah says, it is only a jahil, an ignoramus, who regards constancy of amal and adhkar as insignificant. Waridat ilahiyya. What's the meaning of that? Waridat ilahiyya. Inspirations from Allah Ta'ala will occur even in the abode of the akhirah, while the awrad, the plural of the wird, and the wazaif will end with this world. It is therefore of greater importance to maintain something which has no substitute. Your Mawla, Allah Ta'ala, demands wird from you. He demands your zikr, your wazifa. While you expect warid from him, you want things to come to your heart, inspirations. What relationship is there between your desire and his demand? That is, there's no comparison. Your desire being of no significance in relation to his command. The ibadat is zahiri, outward acts of worship such as nawafil, nafil acts, zikr, azkar, ibadat batini, inward or spiritual acts such as muraqabah, meditation, shughul of the heart, engrossment of the heart, which one practices voluntarily. These things are called wird. The anwar, the rays of spiritual nur, which enters the heart of the banda without his choice, involuntarily, without his will and effort, are termed warid. So one is wird and one is warid. Wird is what you do, warid is what comes to you. So sometimes the salik commits the error of thinking that the ibadat and the zikr which he practices with his own will are not as significant as the waridat which he receives. The reason for this impression is that everyone practices such acts of worship by their own will and intention. On the other hand, warid is received without one's will or intention. Furthermore, everyone is not the recipient of warid. The nafs, therefore, attaches greater importance to warid. But this is erroneous. What this means is that he is doing zikr, he is constant, or someone is constant. But he regards this wird and this constancy and dawam as insignificant. What he considers great is the waridat of Allah, the things that should come to his heart, the illuminations, the anwar. The Shaykh Rahmatullah alayhi dispels this error. Hence he says that is only the jahil who regards constancy in amal and azkar as being insignificant. There are two reasons for this misconception. One, the incidence of waridat will be even in the akhirat. The waridat, inspiration, illumination will happen here and happen over there. In fact, the waridat will be more in the akhirah because here on the earth, contaminations, human nature, and the physical body constitute impediments for divine inspirations. But in the akhirah, these impediments will not exist. On the other hand, the awrad and the wazaif, the things that a person has to do, his amals, his deeds, which are rendered with the physical body, are possible only here on earth. Thus, after death, there's no substitute, there's no badal after death for ibadat and for awrad. Whereas waridat exists here and will exist in the akhirah, as well as in an even greater measure. Hence, it is of greater importance to guard the ibadat-e-zahiri, the outward ibadat, which is called wird. Guard it, guard it. Two, the one who demands wird is Allah Ta'ala. He wants you to worship. He wants you to do zikr, read Quran, tasbih or ma'mulat. While you, the salik, the traveler, is the one who desires waridat. You want that. Those anwar and nur to come to your heart. There is no comparison between your desire and Allah's demand. It behoves you to attach much greater importance to His demand, to what Allah demands, and for that which there is no badal and substitute. It is therefore wajib, essential for the salik, to be constant in the observance of the shughul and the wird and the zikr and what he has to do is amal, which have been imposed on him. He should not regard these to be inferior to the warid, because the normal cause of waridat is also wird. How will the waridat, these things that come unto us, into the heart, serenity, peace, tranquility, nur, light, enlightenment, opening up of different mysteries, entering a different world, all that is a result of the wird and the zikr that you do. As a result of the salik's wird and zikr, he is blessed with the incidence of waridat. When you observe any banda, slave of Allah, exercising constancy in awrad, his wird, his zikr, but you are unable to discern on him the appearance of the arifin, nor the glitter of marifah, then do not think lowly of this divine gift of his constancy. Don't think lowly of it. If it was not for the divine rays of illumination, the tajalliyat, he would not have had the ability to be constant. The elite, the khawas, servants of Allah, are of two kinds, the muqarrabeen and the abrar. The muqarrabeen are those whose choice and nafsani desires have been eliminated. Their sustainment, their baqa, their remaining is with the irada and the will and the ikhtiyar and choice of Allah, which is called al-baqa fillah. After al-fana, then there's al-baqa fillah. They worship Allah and discharge His rights by virtue of their enslavement to Him. They are the muqarrabun, the highest rank, near and dear. السابقون السابقون أولئك المقربون في جنات النعيم. Their motive is nothing else. All they want is only Allah. Their motive is nothing else. They are not concerned with Jannah and with Jahannam. Their concern is only Allah. The other are the abrar, the righteous ones. So remember, these are the elite of Allah. The elite servants of Allah are of two kinds, muqarrabin and abrar. Let's hear about the abrar now. The abrar are those in whom nafsani desires and personal intention, irada, still exists. They worship Allah for the attainment of Jannah and for salvation from Jahannam. Their gaze is set on the acquisition of lofty stations in Jannah like Jannatul Firdaus. And nothing is wrong with that. But they are the abrar, they're not like the muqarrabun. The Quran Majid mentions both types of pious servants because they are both belonging to the elite, either implicitly or explicitly. In his statement here, the Shaykh Rahmatullah Alayhi mentions the abrar. He says that sometimes one sees a man steadfast on his ibadat and awrad, and at the same time observes divine aid with him, that is, in fulfilling his ibadat and devotional acts, there are no obstacles in his path. Allah Ta'ala, having freed him of all worldly activities and harnessed him into ibadah. But despite this, it is observed that the attributes normally to be found in the arifin are lacking in him. Example, he indulges in nafsani pleasures, such as donning nice, high-quality clothes, garments, eating delicious foods, and he lacks also in perpetual zikr and huduri. Huduri is a state of design perception. Allahu hadiri, Allahu nadiri, Allahu ma'i. Nor does there emanate from his face the radiance of the people of Marifah and Muhabba, divine love. Then do not regard the treasure of his constancy, that istiqamat that he has. Do not regard this treasure of his istiqamat in ibadat as insignificant. Don't ever do that. Do not entertain the notion of his wird and his wazifa and amal being of no value simply on account of the qualities of the arifin not being discernible in him. Any such attitude is an act of extreme disrespect. It is not possible to display such steadfastness, istiqamat, and determination without divine illumination, tajalliyat ilahiyya. It is this tajalli of Allah on his heart which sustains and keep him constant and steadfast in his ibadah. Although it is conceded that he lacks the degree of divine illumination experienced by the arifin, whose desires, motives and choice have all been annihilated. But to despise him or to regard his state and his hal and his istiqamat to be inferior is the result of ignorance, and this attitude is an act of disrespect. Another thing we should remember, the Sheikh says, Allah gives his aid, divine aid. The Sheikh says divine aid is in proportion to ability, and the radiance of the anwar is in proportion to the purity of the asrar-e batini, in proportion to the spiritual faculties. What this means? The incidence of anwar and barakat rays of divine light coming down, barakat and blessings on the heart of the banda, is according to his spiritual ability. His spiritual ability will be in the state of perfection if, one, he is fully steadfast in his awrad. And this is a key to rising, to be fully steadfast in the awrad and the zikr and the amal, keeping his heart free from aliens. Anything else besides Allah is an alien. Keeping his heart free from aliens, thoughts and contamination. Two, he is also constant and firm in maintaining physical taharat, purity. That is, in other words, a salik now should always be in a state of wudu. A salik should always be in a state of wudu. Don't be ever without the state of wudu. Always in taharat. In proportion to degree of his spiritual ability will the waridat and anwar descend on him. The maqsood, the aim and the purpose of the waridat and the barakat which Allah sends upon him, the purpose of that is yaqeen and marifat of Allah, that he may gain that. The radiance of the anwar of yaqeen and marifah is according to the degree of purity of the lataif. The spiritual faculties are called lataif. And the purity of the batin, the spiritual faculties, is dependent on constancy in the zahiri awrad. The purity of the batini spiritual faculties is dependent on constancy in the zahiri external awrad and acts of ibadat. It is therefore necessary for the banda to strive diligently to be constant in the observance of his acts of ibadah. The difference in the types of amal is the consequence of the difference in the states of waridat. Amal-e-zahira, external actions, are subservient to the waridat of the heart. The external actions of the banda, of the slave, will be according to the inspirations, waridat, entering the heart. It is observed that some salikin have a greater affinity with nawafil. Some of them just like nafil salat and see them performing plenty nafil salat. Some with saum, they have a greater affinity with saum, fasting, they love to fast. Some with sadaqah, charity. Some with dua. Some with hajj. While others, again, have a greater preference for khalwa, solitude. They just love to be alone, love khalwa. These differences are due to differences in the waridat, which descend on the salikin from Allah Ta'ala. In view of this reality, it is improper to criticize anyone. Everyone is in fact constrained to act according to his waridat. However, there is no doubt in the superiority and excellence of the salik, in whose spiritual and physical states there is a balance, because the balanced way is the method of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Although the most perfect balanced way is exclusive to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whoever acquired some share of it became the outstanding luminary of the age. But such persons are rare, very rare. Among millions, there will be one who has been blessed with the niyabat of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Among millions, there will be one who has been blessed with the niyabat, that is the vicegerency of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are no extremes in the states of such a man. His states and actions are well balanced. The excellences of Amal are the result of the beauties of the Ahwal and spiritual states. The beauties of the Ahwal, spiritual states, are the product of firmness in the stations of Marifah. What this means, Amal, actions here refers to the external or the physical deeds of virtue. Ahwal refers to the states and the attributes of the heart, hal, such as zuhud, abstinence, qanaat, contentment, tawadu, humility, ikhlas, sincerity. These are all ahwal, hal, states of the and attributes of the heart. Maqamat-e marifa, or the stations of marifa and recognition of Allah, are these maqamat and stations are the reflections of divine attributes which become impressed in the hearts of the arifin. These are called the maqamat of marifa. Stations of marifa are the reflections of the divine attributes of Allah which become impressed in the hearts of the arifin. If the ahwal are beautiful, subhanallah, if the ahwal are beautiful, that is, if the heart is adorned with akhlaqi hamida, lofty praiseworthy attributes, and purified of the akhlaqi radhila, the bad unpraiseworthy attributes, the practical deeds will be beautiful. This means that the calamities which are obstacles in the path of acceptance are non-existent. That is this example, the salik is devoid of ujub, vanity. Such beautiful deeds will be adorned with huduri, the state of divine perception, where a person gets the state of huzuri, that Allahu hadiri, Allahu nadiri, Allahu ma'i, and khushu, and unplagued by wasawis, satanic and stray thoughts which enter the mind involuntarily. If the salik is steadfast in the maqamat-e marifa, he will then be perfect in his amal. Example, if awe and reverence are predominant in him, then the rebellion and the pride of the nafs will be defeated, and tawazu and humility and zuhud, abstinence, will develop. If love for Allah becomes dominant, the salik will love to remain aloof from people. If love for Allah becomes dominant, the salik will love to remain aloof from people. If the tajalli, divine illumination, is not of a high degree, the ahwal will suffer a proportionate deficiency, the states of the heart. And in turn, the practical deeds will become correspondingly defective. It's stage by stage, step by step. If the tajalli, the divine illumination, is not of a high degree, then the ahwal and the states and conditions of the heart will suffer a proportionate deficiency, and in turn, the practical deeds will become correspondingly defective. This riya, thus riya and show and other spiritual ailments will influence the deeds of the salik. But the second to last chapter I read it back again. If the salik is steadfast in the maqamat-e marifa, if he is steadfast in the stations of marifa, he will then be perfect in his amal. Example, if awe and reverence are predominant in him, rebellion and pride of the nafs will be defeated, and tawazu and humility and zuhud, abstinence, will develop. If love for Allah becomes dominant, the salik will love to remain aloof from people. And when that happens, such beautiful deeds will be adorned with huzuri. Beautiful deeds will be adorned and decorated with huzuri. That is the state of divine perception. And when huzuri comes in and khushu comes in, the salik will become unplagued by waswasa, unplagued by wasawis, satanic and stray thoughts which enter the mind involuntarily when the deeds are adorned with the state of huzuri. We'll stop here inshallah. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruk wa natubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wassalamun alal mursaleen. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
Social expectation drowns us all inside. What you have should be what I want, 'cause what I have just ain't alright. The clothes I wear, the way I comb my hair, how I live, oh I don't care. This is who I am, this is me.